Welcome to Heart Home Community's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelley Hoffman. Hey everybody, I am in person with Brian May. Thank you for coming into the office, Brian.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to see you in person. It's great to be here in person.
So side note, I actually ran into Brian at ACE and almost walked right past him because he didn't have his Zoom camera or screen around him. I didn't know it was you.
Right.
So how are you doing today?
Good. I'm trying to figure out if I look at you or if I look there.
So for the most part, we're going to look here because we're going to talk to them.
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
And
good,
then occasionally, might want to look this way.
Okay.
But.
All right.
So first and foremost, when we spoke briefly, you said your job has kind of changed a little bit, or the description, or something since January. Can you?
Yeah, I once again I was last fall, which is right after the elections, I was named Majority Leader of the Legislature again, and then subsequent to that, at the first of the year, there was kind of a coup. A new chairman of the legislature was elected. And this new legislative chair, then for obvious reasons to him, decided to also make me chair of the Ways and Means Committee of the legislature.
Oh.
And so that's something I had done in the past. In fact, when I came on the ledge, I quickly became chair of public safety. Then I became chair of Ways and Means. And then from there, I was elected majority leader. And once you're majority leader, that's all you do.
Okay.
But if you're good at the chairmanships and you were a decent chair, you never stop being that chair, even if other people go and do it because of the relationships and things you do. So I'm still kind of doing a lot with public safety. I've been right along doing a lot with Ways and Means. Ways and Means oversees the county's $1.4 billion budget. It's a huge responsibility. It's one of the more dynamic.
I was going to ask you about that. So I wouldn't have known what Ways and Means was until I was in PTA, which is not exactly the same as the county.
Yeah.
But that's how I found out what Ways and Means is. And it's really just bringing in the money and where you're going to spend the money, right?
Right. Exactly. And, it's kind of been madness ever since, because both of those positions are very demanding jobs. And then you still have to represent a district. And I think the better members of the legislature are coming to the legislature from the private sector. So it so happens, I have a pretty demanding day job too. Right. So, and we want that from our electeds, right? We want people where that isn't their life, especially in a legislative body where they come in and they're there to bring their perspectives and views, the every man, every woman standpoint to the legislative process from real life. Not people that are living in government. That's their life. That's their day every day. I think that's a narrow perspective that doesn't help people.
Well, and that's across the board. I know when I lived in Pittsburgh, I worked for a home health agency, and there were technicians and computer people that created the programs, but they weren't nursing staff. So they didn't think of it from a nursing standpoint, right? So, so I got to believe it's the same thing with the government. Like, you want the people that understand what's happening in the daily life, the workforce, the living in the community, to be putting out there what needs to happen for the county.
Exactly.
So do you like it, or how? Or can we not?
I love being busy. I don't complain, but I also love watching my kids play baseball. I love visiting my kids at college. I love being home with my family in the summertime and doing stuff with them. So I'm working it out. It's
balance, right?
It's not easy. Not easy, but it's we're making it happen.
Nice.
Making it happen.
So another topic that I don't know if it ties into that or not, but obviously going with how long someone's elected, or you said that's kind of conversation.
It's something that bubbled up for probably and I think there's an important kind of overarching topic with this. Okay. It's bubbled up for I think third time since I've been on the ledge, and that is term limits and or the terms of county legislators. This recent initiative that turned into a bit of a show, if you will, was, in the eyes of many, if not most, a very misguided, based on a very misguided perspective on what is right and what is wrong. Okay. It also, suffers the same thing that's happening, statewide, nationally, which is there's a movement, and it's not party specific. This is not a political statement. It's just something the various factions out there are battling for, I'll call it technical control of election outcomes instead of just leaving it to the folks that come to the polls and cast their
So
vote.
explain what that means, though, the technical outcome.
Changing the rules. When we've all had people knock on our door to collect petitions in New York State, for example, that used to be now. As actually in the summer when you could go to people's doors, it was still light outside at 5 p.m. and say, hey, we're not asking you to support this person, but this is who's on the ballot, and we need your signature to validate the fact that this person is on the ballot.
Okay.
And you could do that in evenings or after hours. Now we're doing it in February. It's dark at 5 o'clock. It's dark at 4:30 in many cases. So
and honestly, it's weird to have someone knock on your door anyway, especially at nighttime, right? Because we're just not in that community anymore. Unless you're getting a pizza.
Yeah.
People,
exactly. Unless you got some food on the other side of the door.
Right.
Forget about it.
Or something, right?
Right. So it's little things like that. And again, it's not a political assertion on my part. It's look, when we're in positions where these decisions can be made, let's look at it from the standpoint of the voter and the people that we're serving and say, okay, what can we do to give them the most possible say in what they do? Neat thing about, there's some political undertones within this initiative at the legislature, to shrink the county executive's term, to shrink the comptroller's term. And notice I'm talking about one Republican and one Democrat. Shelley, I'm not getting political here. Okay. So there was efforts to theoretically do both.
What are their terms right now?
4 years.
4 years. So
with no limits as to how long. We've only had 3 county executives. No, this is our 4th county. Ryan is our 4th county executive since we had county government structured the way we have. Okay. That's back to the 60s.
Oh, wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So, and there's 2 sides of that coin too. If you have someone that's doing a really good job that you want to keep, why should you not be able to keep that person? Right. The other side of that coin is let's get fresh blood, fresh whatever.
Well, new ideas tend to come with new people, but it's not always good. Again,
it depends on what's going on and what's happening. So, again, there's all kinds of different ways to look at it, and I respect all of those opinions. I really do. But when we dug into this and we actually had to vote, a lot of things kind of came out in the wash. And one of those is the neat thing about the county legislature and its 2-year terms is that, when you're elected, you've got 12 months to do a job and to fulfill all the promises that you said you're going to do, or conduct yourself the way you told the voters you were going to conduct yourself, and try to accomplish those things. What happened after that first 12 months, you have to decide, if not sooner, am I going to run again? And then all of a sudden you're in campaign mode, unless you have a demanding day job and a majority leader responsibility and Ways and Means chairmanship. You have to go into campaign mode. That's the average legislator has to do that. So what happens is you're constantly having to prove yourself, especially the newer legislators, constantly having to prove yourself and follow through on what you say you're going to do. And if you don't, the numbers bear it out. You are gone. If you decide to take 3 months off, it's so hard getting elected, and then you don't do anything, everybody's going to notice that. Everybody's going to notice that. And you won't be reelected. Simple. That's that's how it works. And in my time on the ledge, 10 years, there have been 45 seat changes since I came onto the legislature.
You've been 10 years, you said?
Yeah.
Is there a time limit for how many times you can be elected?
No. So the law that was proposed is that I could do this into perpetuity. And there's been legislators in history that have served for 10, 20, 30. Actually, 10 is not uncommon. I'm still figuring stuff out after 10 years, Well, but the 20 and 30-year members, holy cow. And I've had a self-governing sort of rule because I don't like to be bored in any aspect of my life. But if I don't move up with my responsibility or scope of authority or whatever in 2 terms, I'm gone. Okay. So I am positive I've plateaued. So I might have one more in me. It's time, right? I might have one more in me, but that's where that is. but that's a self-governing perspective. And again, I try to balance my life with all the good things that are around me all the time.
So the one thing that I just have, and this is in my way of thinking, people can disagree with me, is a term of 2 years. To your point, you're just learning the ropes, and you have to prove yourself. And then if you're not doing it to the satisfaction of the people, then you won't get reelected and somebody else comes in. So again, we're going to go back down to my little PTA so people don't judge me, but that's the only thing that I can really equate it to is, every year somebody new comes in. It's like you have so much time to learn what to do. Then you have so much time to apply it before you're looking for the replacement of it. So, so my thinking is for 10 years, I get your point of view might have plateaued, and maybe it, whether you choose to run again for a couple more years or whatnot is on you.
Yeah.
But I could only imagine how much knowledge you've gained every 2-year stint that you've sat there.
Yeah. And that measurement of mine is not on gain knowledge, it's more responsibility and positioning. Because I'm still learning every day. It's a $1.4 billion budget with 60 programs. We have 300 buildings, assets, and things, all kinds of departments, programs. And it's so dynamic. Law enforcement, the criminal justice system, social services, half of county government is under that umbrella, there are so many dimensions of service, from veterans to WIC, moms needing assistance. Yep. All of those kinds of things out there. And then there's the meat and potato stuff like tax and finance. And I know I'm missing things, but you get the drift. And even take the jails, for example. You've got Janesville Correctional Facility, right? You've got the custody center, both of which house, upwards of 600 people at times. And then you've got Hillbrook. And each one of those has a different set of rules, a different set of, and you have to learn all that stuff if you're to effectively legislate and support the needs of this community in your job to make sure that those operations are run in the right way. Yeah. So if you're doing it right, you're always learning. And I'll never know everything there is to know. I don't think anyone will.
No, and it is that way with a lot of industries, but in government, obviously, a lot of people are looking to you for what you guys are going to do.
Yep.
So, and if you answered this, I apologize. I might have got caught up on something else. But what changes are they looking to make?
Specifically for those 3 positions I mentioned, legislator, comptroller, and county executive, they were looking to set term limits on all of them, and then change the legislative term to 4 years.
Okay.
And, on a personal note.
So take the 2 that are 4 years down to 2. So
I think it's like the comptroller and the county executive would then be limited to
how many times they can be
elected. And I want to say that was 3 or 4 times. That was it. And then the legislature would again have those 3 or 4 terms. I don't remember what he put forward.
And then 4 years.
And then move the terms to 4 years.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, in this political atmosphere where the weather is a political fight most days, the notion of doing it for 4 years would be enough to turn away some people. And at the same time, the notion of running every 2 years would turn away some candidates. But if you look at the people that I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that you really want to try to engage, people from real life. Mm-hmm. It could be, a mom coming home. We just talked to some great people across the hall there. Yep. It could be a mom from home that really gets it, right, from her perspective. Or it could be some captain of industry or business leader of some kind or entrepreneur. You want all of those people to be engaged. And why create limits? And more importantly, why limit the voters' ability to choose by lengthening the term, by not taking advantage of the built-in accountability that we have? 45 seat changes, that's a ton.
Yeah.
That's a ton. And it's not, we count the numbers of times a seat goes from one person to another person to another person. That's how that number was derived. And it's crazy.
Is there, and I'm not asking you to tell me who or what area, but is there one area within that just kind of is constantly changing seats? Like obviously you've had your seat for about 10 years, like you said.
Yeah.
Just curious. The people want to know.
Yeah. We've seen, it's funny, where we've seen stability, we've seen turnover. Where we've seen turnover, we've seen stability. So there's no rhyme or reason.
Okay.
There's some really great legislators that are there for a while because they're great legislators. They're engaged. They're on top of their game, both sides of the aisle. On top of their game, they're engaged. They have great relationships in the community, and they do their job. They don't compartmentalize so much that it's like, okay, this week I'm going to be focused on my job, and then next week I'll focus on my legislator duties.
Right.
To compartmentalize your days and your hours if you're to really be able to do this right.
And your work life, your government life, and your family life.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every day something pays. I don't, whatever it is. Usually it's me, but something pays,
right.
because you don't want to say no, right?
Yeah. No.
To any of those things. So.
Well, usually people that are doing what you're doing aren't people who tend to say no.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I think I can add one more thing. So at some point in, talking about this, you had talked about programs, things like that. So hopefully you don't mind if I jump to, but.
Yeah, I just maybe conclude by saying that the idea went down in flames because of all the stuff that was talked about, even the recent state stuff to move the elections to, which happened after this discussion, to the fact that, hey, we've got the best built-in governance for this process. And, the person who brought this forward missed some key points of fact within the law that would have really not given the public a chance to weigh in on this decision by the legislature. So at the end of the day, it didn't pass, but there's a sentiment out there that tells me that regardless of your political party, protect your right to vote no matter what, because that's it's a great privilege. It's a great right. It's a great responsibility for all of us to have to make sure we're represented the way we want to be represented. Again, from whatever walk of life you're coming from. That's the moral of the story. It's under attack in some ways these days.
Yeah. Oh, well, a lot of things are.
Yeah.
So, and I think you start off by saying it's been approached a couple times. So every time it's just kind of.
This was the farthest I've seen it make it. I guess back in 2010 or 12 or no, before then, it was brought up and it actually went to a vote, but it didn't pass back then either.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry to hold you up.
No, that's okay. Yeah. There's a topic that I want to talk
Yeah.
about. I'm not going to lie. I have an agenda today.
Yeah.
And that's because I've seen a little bit more come through about the sports complex and the aquarium.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of curious.
I mean, there's not much to report, but I think it's good to just at least talk about where things are at. And really where they're at is in limbo. Okay.
That is not what I wanted, people.
I get it. The sports complex, which from has from the standpoint of the proposers, but the sports complex is, both these items, the aquarium and the sports complex, were proposed during the budget. That's back in September.
Right.
We started talking about them probably closer to August. Okay. It was in the wind that it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And nothing's happened since except talk. And really since late last year, there's been no formal discussion. The items kind of went on hold during the budget. We said, hey, these aren't necessarily bad ideas. These aren't necessarily ideas we can get behind, but let's take the money, we'll earmark it, put it in the budget as what we call contingency, but earmarked in contingency for those specific purposes.
Okay.
The aquarium and the sports complex. With the sports complex, just some of the issues that were that are still hanging out there without response, at least from my standpoint, is there was some discussion on whether or not the complex as proposed needed to have an indoor facility, given we have 4 or 5 private sector options out there in this community, maybe 6 if you stretch the limits a little bit into another county.
Yeah.
And why compete with the private sector? Why not complement the private sector with these premier athletic fields and a premier opportunity to bring soccer and lacrosse to one place? The other issue with this process is the people who are using that facility now. Softball players, from seniors down to young girls. There's baseball there, but baseball has lots of places to go. Not to minimize it, I'm a big baseball guy, as some know. I got my season ticket Syracuse Spartan band on right now. but there's options for baseball.
Right.
The softball piece, though, there are tournaments there every weekend. There's hardly any league play. Back when I was younger, way back when I was younger, there was, the park was packed and there were softball leagues every single night.
Right.
And it was crazy. Now there's like 25 teams registered to play softball there during the week, and others use the fields to practice, which is great. And then there's weekend tournaments, and there are some great senior events, senior tournaments, senior leagues, great senior leagues, okay, that are very popular with people. And I think the county has an obligation to make sure that those folks, there's a seamless transition for those folks to play somewhere and play somewhere really good. So those fields aren't for people in Liverpool, they're for the whole county, right? And for folks coming in for tournaments, we have to be able to move those tournaments someplace. And that's got to be, from my perspective, Shelley, done before we even talk about building a sports complex, so that those folks are taken care of. The third consideration for this whole thing is the neighborhood. Traffic. That whole Oot Meadows area over there, traffic, parking, how's it going to work? What's going to happen to the roads? There's a lot of plans, a lot of ideas. These guys are pros, right? The county Parks Department and Brian and his team with economic development and so on, they're pros. They know how to get this stuff done. But those concerns have to be addressed as well. And then there's lots of ideas for the softball, baseball displacement, or I should say replacement, because if you tell softball players, no, we're just not going to have anything for 23, but we'll be back in business. If I'm a 13-year-old girl who loves softball, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to Dixon. I'm going to buy me a stick, right? And start playing lacrosse.
Yep.
Softball's gone. So we can't have that kind of disruption. Again, Parks Department, they get that. The guy that the Parks Commissioner, huge baseball guy, awesome guy, very good at what he does, and he understands these elements of the discussion. So I'm confident that at some point they'll have answers for these things that are going to make sense, and they have a possibility to move forward. The aquarium, on the other hand, is an interesting situation because, as I said from day one, it's a great idea. It's a big idea. I love big ideas. I love challenges to work through. Personally, I'm still not sold that we would be buying into something that wouldn't become a significant tax burden downstream in terms of maintenance, capital maintenance, and things like that. There's also some concerns, again, just other people's concerns having to do with, well, are we really going to draw those kinds of people from outside the area?
I had a conversation with someone actually today because I told them I was speaking with you and I was going to ask this question. And they said, I only see myself going to the aquarium maybe once, twice, or I said, I don't even know if it's for us as it is to draw people to Syracuse. So, I
want to answer that because that's so important. Mm-hmm. This aquarium is going to be for us because we own it. It's ours. It'll be ours if it's built. Okay. And as I said, the business model just doesn't stand up for me. I mean, and I have yet to see something that, it could, but it doesn't yet. We've had a lot of talk offline about it, within county government.
Yeah.
But again, I have an open mind and I'm not predisposed. And if someone can figure it out, I'm all ears. The aquarium is an economic development strategy. That strategy has goals within it, and the goals are tourism, economic development. Tourism drives sales tax. Tourism drives hotel room nights.
Right.
Hotel room nights drive not only sales tax, but room occupancy tax that the county uses to maintain our on-center, to market and promote Central New York as a tourist destination through Visit Syracuse, formerly the Convention and Visitors Bureau, to huge investments. That's where the lion's share of that money goes. So you're kind of feeding the beast to build, and you get this with your business. I can see it,
yes.
Right? You're feeding the beast in a variety of different ways to allow it to flourish and grow. Ryan has a great strategy here. As far as, it's just a question of, can the goals be met? Gotcha. And our dialogue is at a point where, I just don't know if that will happen or not. Most of the discussion these days is by people other than the decision makers in the process. So the media is perpetuating the story.
Yep.
There's certainly social resources for folks to learn more about it. That was a request by the legislature. Hey, county administration, and I credit Ryan for doing this. Get some info out there. It should be out there for everybody to learn, because the one misconception people have is that it's for me. If we build this, it's to pay for county government and government services. We have half that $1.4 billion I told you about,
right,
is social service type, human service type expenses. Those aren't going away. They're probably getting more expensive.
They are.
So, and some of those expenses are mandated by higher levels of government, by the county. We have to figure out ways to pay for that stuff. So sales tax is a wonderful thing because it keeps property taxes low. It allows you to sell a lot of houses because, it's a good value in this community.
Right.
That kind of stuff, So this isn't for us per se, but if it's built and if the machine is built, the asset is available to this community. Lots of talk about the price of admission and how it's going to be tough for accessibility. I think they're addressing that in a wonderful way with the schools and other ways to bring groups in and stuff. It's a tough topic. It's a dynamic topic. If I could rewind the world, right, I would have begged to not have either of those items in the budget, because by putting them in the budget, they overshadowed the incredible increased investment Onondaga County is making. And this Ryan's credit, really. I mean, in those human service areas, he calls it his PIE platform, poverty encroachment,
Right.
economic development. And he's doing all those things. But the poverty piece, I mean, Shelley, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Syracuse has a real panhandler problem, right?
Right.
Undeniable panhandler problem. You can't go anywhere. You can't even go up Route 31 anymore without having that awkward and sometimes dangerous situation, right? It can be. And there was an effort to talk about it, and everybody went crazy, right? Understandably, they went crazy. That's inappropriate. Can't even talk. So Ryan came up with an idea. And I don't know if it was his or he got it from somebody, but it's a great idea. And he started this company called Hire Ground. HIRE Ground.
Okay.
And you're taking these homeless people and you're giving them work for a day. And they have a van and a truck that allows them to go around and do work, primarily within the city of Syracuse. My colleagues and I are working on something to expand their outreach. Dave Knapp from Lafayette did a great thing and had Hire Ground out in Janesville by the trash incinerator facility. And they just spent, I don't know, a week or something like that, just picking up all the trash and stuff that falls off the trucks while they're waiting in line to dump garbage. Beautification. So we're looking at ways to get them out here. We have problems on Brundage Road and areas around, stuff like that just doesn't.
Now, well, I was going to ask you, because I know at one point, I walk the village a lot.
Yeah.
And at one point there was a group working by Sammy's, but it probably wasn't that, but I think it was the same concept of.
Might have been Earth Day.
Okay.
Earth Day, a ton of people get activated. Town Life Center, Bob Wicks, and
they do
does a great job getting folks to pick. A lot of people pick around their neighborhoods, and they go out there. And the town people and the Republican, some of the volunteer committees, like they worked on, if I remember, Brundage Road this year, which is where those trucks line up.
That was, yeah.
And they're, there's jugs. And when people see trash, Shelley, unfortunately, what do?
They add to it.
They dump more trash.
Yes. Well, and last year, not this year, Bob and I didn't talk about this year, but last year he was out there cleaning it. And he said the things that you see that people think nobody's going to see that they throw away.
Yeah. There's a few tires there. I got a few tires. Let me throw them there. Televisions and oh my gosh, it's crazy.
He said there was a lot.
It's bold,
So, and I guess I kind of figured that's what you were going to say about the sports and sports complex in the aquarium. But so, and I said this earlier. I'm from Pittsburgh, and we have some really great, like the aquarium and stuff. And it's touristy. I think I've been to each of those things one time. And then I took my kids when my kids were, born. We went one more time, but it's really the people that come from other places.
That's the economic driver. The benefit is that when it's time for you to bring your kids, you can do that.
Yes.
When it's time for that family that just moves here, or people that just move here, or some dude taking a girl out on a date, hey, let's go to the aquarium. They can do that. And they might not go every week. They might go 3 times in its existence.
Yes.
That's all taken consideration into that consideration is all in the numbers. They've done a good job with that stuff. Nobody's doubting, right? It's just a matter of, okay, well, what happens when we have to spend $15 million, $10 million, $5 million to fix something, replace something, expand something?
Right.
It's a whole new public debate, or second guessing, over what these things are going to cost. I mean, I'll give you an example that's not a good one, and it's a very concerning one to me. And that is, there was an article about Destiny yesterday in the paper.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
It kind of was a little bit between the headlines, but their debt service is way, way above the value of that mall. And we see what's happening with that mall. So strategically, is there an opportunity for public-private partnership there to buoy a huge, because it's, when someone's not paying taxes, it's a huge community investment.
Right.
Now, they're a top driver of sales tax in Onondaga County. Pre-COVID, they were all by themselves generating an incredible number of sales tax dollars through their stores and retail operations and all the travel that came in. Number one, everything else in the county. And, now that's different because there's 3 anchors missing. There's, this valuation, there's consumer shift from in person to online. There's all these things. How do you protect that investment? And this isn't, rocket science or my special ideas. It's just, let's talk about the tough stuff,
Right.
And that's why, if we put this under a microscope, and I just don't think, well, we haven't gotten anywhere yet, but if we talk about the tough stuff and have the tough conversations, maybe we'll come up with a better idea, or I'm not saying there should be a compromise. I'm not even saying there's a better idea. I'm just saying, let's really think it through, because, no matter what anybody says to me, I don't care if we've got twice the surplus we should have in county government, because every government has surplus right now. It's pretty much a joke. Government printed all kinds of money, sent it to all these municipalities, and they all have too much money, and everybody's worried about it. You know what I say? Who cares? There's nobody. I don't care if the state comptroller says you got to spend that money. No, I'm not going to spend it stupidly. We have it earmarked for a couple of big projects, and we're ready to make a move. If we make a move, if it's those things we make a move on, we will do it. And until such time we can make a confident decision, we can wait. And if people don't like that, kick me out. But that's my attitude about it. I don't want to hear that, we got to do it now. You don't have to do anything now. There's always a better deal. You're living in that world. You know that. There's always a better deal.
There always is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just had this conversation with 2 actually contractors, so different industry, right? But there's a way of doing things, and there's a way of, if you don't do it right, it costs more money, and you're fixing things. You need to make sure that you're having the conversations, that you have the plan, that you're doing it right. And, and again, that's pretty much every industry, but in government, it affects a lot more people than just, one contractor's business or one, real estate decision or something like that.
And as valid as some of the input we're getting on the aquarium specifically, if someone says to me, I'll never go there. Cool. That's your opinion. I get it. Or that doesn't appeal to me, or I think you should put the money elsewhere. Those are all valid opinions, but our thought process and within our scope of authority involves different things, like the facts, like the whatever. People's sentiments, they add up. Believe me, they add up.
Oh yeah.
But the drivers for this is the business model going to stand up? I'm a simple guy. I got to have black and white things to sort out. I get the sentiment piece. I might even share some of those sentiments depending on the issue that we're talking about, whatever it may be.
But that's why there's business plans.
That's right. And feasibility studies and things of that nature. So it's a tough topic. I'm sure, Ryan would love to have it approved tomorrow. We all know that. But it's just,
it'll be a while.
I don't know. It could be tomorrow for all I know. You know, because it's sort of idle from a legislative process standpoint. Most of the discussions is, Ryan with these two legislators, Ryan with this or his team, and I say Ryan, I mean his team, there's a lot of his team is highly engaged on this as well. And as I can only speak for my caucus, I believe in letting them. I don't whip votes or influence votes. I believe in letting them come.
Welcome to Heart Home. So this is why we moved the mouse away from Brian.
Sorry, everybody. So we just had to. We just got to let it. I let the team do what they think they need to do for their constituents and themselves. I always tell them, coming out, guys, be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Be true to the promises that you made. Hopefully the promises that you made as a politician and someone that wants to be elected are truly who you are, because the litmus test is going to come every week in your job. So I hope you were true to yourself when you made promises, and I hope that your performance is based on who you are and what you believe and what your virtues and values are. Because if you play this group will support me if I do this, and this group will support me if I do that, you become part of that group of people. I said after 2 years they're gone, because it just doesn't. It never pans out. Never pans out. And I could name names.
But he won't.
Yeah, no, I'd never.
So the last topic, I mean, and obviously we can talk about other things that I'm kind of curious about. You mentioned is the county. I'm going get. It's a 3-letter word that nobody wants to talk about right now.
Yeah. So, boy, gas prices suck, don't they?
They do. They're horrible. Yeah. I have a 17-year-old that doesn't drive as much as she used to because she has to fill up her own tank.
I'm not driving as much as I think about what I'm doing before I go. I drive a pickup truck, so it's like it.
Oh yeah.
I don't even want to tell you what it costs to fill a tank, but hey, whatever. So we did what we felt was a pretty good thing a couple of months ago, and that was pass a cap on gas tax.
Okay.
And New York State did that as well. So all told, when we the way it was, we had been in collaboration with Ryan's office about where we should set that cap. Mm-hmm. You need a crystal ball to see. Now today I don't know what time it happens, but we're going to find out from the Fed what's happening with rates, and God knows what that's going to do, right?
I know.
So there's so many moving parts. It's kind of economic madness right now in this country and in our community, and certainly right down to the gas pump, grocery store, everything is incredible, right? Mm-hmm. And supply chains are still terrible. Okay. So we passed this cap on gas tax. We did it with knowledge of what the state was going to do. And, I'd say on average, it's going to save folks about, on average, let's say the prices go up from here a little bit, go down from here a little bit. They're going to do this through Labor Day, right?
Right.
It's going to save 30 cents a gallon, thereabouts, which is pretty substantial between what we're doing and what the state is doing, because we're working with percentages, right? And an estimation of what, and the way sales tax works is you're always working out a quarter in advance. So we passed this a few months ago. We have to wait till June 1st for that to kick in, for the cap to kick in. So the prices we're paying now would actually be more. Don't hold me to the 30 cents. It's been a couple months since we talked about it, but give or take, it's 30 cents. During the dialogue of us discussing whether to do this or not, we started hearing from the Syracuse City Council, who, by the way, has a 25% stake in Onondaga County sales tax.
Okay.
So for the 4 cents that we collect, there's 8 cents, 4 cents New York State, 4 cents Onondaga County. We have an obligation, the county, by treaty agreement, to pay them 25% of the sales tax that's received. So one of those 4 pennies goes to the city. That treaty that's their deal. So when we said we're going to cap sales tax, we started hearing rumblings we heard rumblings from the city. There were public rumblings from the city. Don't you do that. We
need the money.
Well, they don't need the money. They received $120 something million in federal stimulus money when they did not bear the cost of COVID-19. Onondaga County did. And Onondaga County did, yet we received only it's pennies from heaven. It was $86 million or something like that. So it was political.
Yeah.
Just political, right? City, county, the Cain and Abel kind of thing, whatever. But yeah, so we did this thing, and county residents are saving at the pump effective June 1st.
June 1st?
I think it was June 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Just June 1st is when it kicked in.
Okay.
And you don't see it on the bill. It's all kind of like a back thing. But interesting, one of our staff people at the legislature told me just yesterday or this morning that we're among the lowest prices nationally right now.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Wow.
And that's in the Syracuse area in New York State. Crazy.
Yeah.
So anyways, so it's working a little bit, but relatively speaking, who's going to know? I just know what I pay when I put that pump in my truck and fill it up. So, but yeah, they were very resistant. And then on the 31st of May, I think it was, the city council passed an ordinance that said, we want all our money. So it doesn't affect, actually what the ordinance said, it's great that we're saving residents money, but we want our sales tax. So I'm not going to say that's okay. I'm actually going to say it was opportunistic and very disappointing that they would respond this way. That's putting other things ahead of constituent service, because we've got people in need in every corner of this county, not just the city of Syracuse. Every corner of this county. Trust me, I know. Yeah. And it's sad to see what amounts to politics weigh into such an important thing, because there's not a lot we can do. We can't say everything's going to be 10% off. Go crazy this weekend. Everything's 10% off. No, government doesn't do that. That's free enterprise. But this is one area where there's a tax applied, use tax applied, that we can say, hey, let's put some governance on how much money we can collect. So when we did, because of the rumblings we heard when we did the tax, there's a little inside baseball for the whole world. Ryan was proposing it at a certain level because he, who has a great sense for this stuff, said, they're going to opt out. City might opt out. We're at risk for the city opting out. So let's come in here. And then the legislature, when the ball was in our court, we kicked it around and went back to Ryan and said, you know what? We got to go deeper. So let's do this regardless of what the city does. Okay. So going into this, we know that there's the potential for us to incur an extra $1 million to $1 to $2 million expense associated with this cap decision, because the city has said we want our money. We don't care. So it sucks because you're going to save at the pump, but if $1 million to $1 to $2 million come out of county coffers, it may cost you at a different time. Or all of us. I was going to
say it comes
one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's just to me, it's I think what was the "we're all in it together" expression when all this madness started? It's clear we're not. And it's so disappointing, right? Yeah. And it's and I keep disclaiming myself, but because I'm living in a political world sometimes. Best part of my life is outside the political world. I might tell you that, but it's not so much a political statement as it is a, man, guys, let's kind of hammer into the common cause here, and work backwards from that. Let's keep the priorities straight. I'm afraid we don't have them straight right now. And at the end of the day, it takes so long to reconcile this stuff that it won't be till probably late next year, Q3, Q4, 23, before we even know
what
their decision is going to cost county taxpayers. And by the way, county taxpayers live in the city too. I don't get it, but it happened. We did a good thing. People are saving right now. Let's hope prices go down and it's a non-issue. And then whatever goes to the city, nothing goes, very little gets reconciled back to the city, and it's a non-issue, and it's just more political shenanigans that we just have to endure as part of the world we're living in today. But I think we did a good thing, and I think it's making a difference. And to hear that we're stacking up nationally today is amazing to me.
Yeah,
is amazing to me. So it makes me glad that we went the extra notch. And by the way, this was the legend of the administration working pretty closely together and everybody being agreeable to a final path. So, and that's the whole legislature. There were some members of the whole legislature was working together.
To get it done.
Yeah.
So, and obviously I appreciate all the information, but just, I have to get gas in my car. So just for you and everybody else in the legislation, when I pump my gas and I spend all that money, I will at least now know that I could have spent more if you guys.
Yeah. And see what
the silver lining is, it's not that much, but
it's happening because it's happening at the sort of on a macro level. You don't see it, the cap. It would be impossible for point of sale systems to calculate a cap. So it's happening on a macro level that drives the ultimate price because there's less tax to be collected.
Right.
That's why it has to be done with percentage. It's very complex. I had to call this morning and say, hey, walk me through how this works again, because I had it then, but you get on with things a few days later and make it 2 months and you forget exactly what you did. But
how it works, man.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is 6 months ago, everyone was making fun of me because I'd only put $50 in my tank. It almost filled it up, but not quite. And so I'll get a text every once in a while and say, hey, how's that $50 getting you? Not fun.
It's quarter of a tank of gas.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. But.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else? I know we covered what we talked about talking, but is there anything else?
Yeah, well, I think the capital projects are gonna bubble up again. I think the amount of reserves we and every local government is carrying right now, in my view, unnecessarily, because our kids are going to be paying for some of this nonsense forever.
Yeah.
Forever. It just wasn't necessary. From a point of practicality, it just wasn't necessary. I think the money that went to households went to people to an extent that was good, but at one point it became overkill, so we're going to have to deal with that money. And I think that's going to be so we're going to talk, if we're not talking about the aquarium or sports complex, we'll be talking about other stuff.
Yeah.
My team, the legislature in general is working together and talking with one another about ideas for ways to invest this money into sustainable outcomes. That takes a lot of thought, because we don't, there's one-shot money we can spend to fix things. You can't take one-shot money and start a program that's got to be paid for next year. That's a bad move. And there's no shortage of people that are lobbying for that approach. We'll figure it out later. Something else can give. I don't roll that way. It's we have to, let's invest this money. And that's, one of the big arguments that I don't agree with on the aquarium is that this is one area where I really agree with Ryan, is that we have to make these kinds of investments to create these revenue streams that sustain essential government services.
Yeah, because they're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere, and they're only going to cost more.
Right.
But if you just say, hey, let's throw this money, we've seen things. Let's throw $20 million at this program, at this service, at this issue. All we're doing is creating a budget hole downstream. That doesn't make sense. Let's put the money against a revenue stream to make what we're doing sustainable into the future so that taxpayers aren't burdened. We're going to have a wicked, we should see a lot of tax rate decreases this year. Not tax bill decreases. Let's not kid ourselves.
No, but rates.
Tax rates should be going down because of the cash that the governments are sitting on, because of just how things have shaken out. The real estate, the assessments around here,
yes.
I've gotten a few phone calls. Let me tell you, it's been a tough situation. And if you're like me, I still escrow. And I got my assessment, and then I got my escrow change.
I know.
I get through telling probably 50 people that I talk to, don't worry, the town is gonna, and I believe they're gonna do this. They're gonna adjust the rates accordingly, because the town, what they do is separate and apart from what the assessor does. It's two different things. And you understand that, and a lot of people don't. And so they have to lower the rates. Okay, they have to lower. The county has to lower rates. But I forgot, and I got through telling them, don't worry, they're gonna do right by you, because they do. They always do. There's a history of the town and the county doing right with tax rates.
But people see the assessment number and assume that they don't realize it's the tax rate with that number that comes into play with how much they pay in their taxes.
That's right. And so if your escrow changes before the tax rate changes, you're going to escrow. So I had not a small increase to my escrow as a result of that assessment increase.
Yeah.
That's life. I love our community. I love living here. I love paying for what we get, because it's just awesome, but
that letter was not pretty. Like when you get the letter, you open it, you're like, oh, and it's coming. It doesn't change the fact, but
and again, the escrow piece is what hurt me. I'm confident that the town, the county, are going to do the right things.
And I'm in the village as well, so
in the village, yeah, for sure. And but 65% goes to the school. People should be talking to their school board. Make sure you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Not suggesting they won't, but I'm suggesting they need to hear from people. Everybody in government needs to hear from people to make sure that they're doing the right by the levies. Should stay the same. The cost of government should stay the same this year to next, minus inflation.
Well, and I do know that when I talked to Bob Wicks, which is the town of Lysander, the cost of doing things has gone up, like the materials, so
incredible.
Yes. So even when they're doing their best to try and keep saying, they do have to take the price of gas for plowing, right? If the gas prices don't come down, the amount that it will
gas budgets are already blown this year.
Yeah.
And at all levels of government. So that stuff's going to be baked in. That's going to be your increase in levy, should be just things that are real increases, right? Mm-hmm. But hopefully beyond that, they're going to do the right things the cost of living changes are cost of living changes, Yeah. I wish we took a year off of assessment just to let this in. I don't believe real estate prices ever go down, but there might be a little elasticity, just the timing. And the law dictates, nobody did anything wrong here by any stretch. The law dictates what happens and how it has to happen, how people can fix it, change it, and it just is what it is.
Well, and honestly, what I've told some people, and this, is if our town assessor didn't step in and do what they do, the state will step in. Like if you don't make the adjustments, and it might not take a while, but at the end of the day, it's a law.
Theoretically, staying at full assessed value is the best solution and most fair solution for taxpayers, provided that process is administered consistently and fairly. As long as that happens, theoretically, the way we do it here is the right way. I'm convinced it's the right way. I used to be on that board. Believe me, I looked at things. I looked 6 ways from Sunday to try to find a better way. A better way in this case being, gosh, we got all these people out there on fixed incomes. How can we make it better for them? Mm-hmm. We're going to do a little something to get some relief out of the county for seniors and stuff this year in particular. They need the help.
Yeah.
At least that's, there's some talk about it. And, but it's something we've yet to be able to figure out. So the best thing we can do is keep those assessments fair and equitable. And I say we, the town, and the assessor, that office is governed by a whole different set of laws than town government. I'm sure Bob talked about this. Mm-hmm. So, your town board can't change what's happening there. They have no influence.
Zero. And that's
Legislator, I have none. Zero. County has nothing to do with it. But but certainly I'm talking to folks and I'm encouraging them to take advantage of the grievance process. There's good people there that'll hear what you have to say and take what you're asking for into consideration, especially if you're willing to do the homework to
to go there.
to get things done. So
Well, it's that old saying: if you didn't vote, you don't have the right to complain. If you don't file a grievance, they're not going to change it. If you don't take the effort to at least try, no one's going to do it for you.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, Brian. Unless you have something else today.
I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good. Thank you for having me again.
I'm super
great to be here in person.
I was gonna say I'm happy you came here in person. So, all right, everybody, enjoy. I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. Wednesday.
Today's
right?
Wednesday.
All right. Yeah. Enjoy your Wednesday. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.